In this video, we're going to take a look at percents. I'd like to start our discussion by talking about the percent equation. So first of all, the percent equation is an equation that relates the percent to an amount and a base. Now, what am I talking about here? Well, whenever you have a percent never stands alone. You always take a percent of something. And that thing you're taking the percent of is called the base. And when you then take the percent of a base, you get a result, and that amount is called the amount. So what is 35% of 140? Notice in your percent equation, you always take a percent of a base, or the percent always gets multiplied by the base. So in our question, we have the word of here, which we know means multiplication in mathematics. So we are taking the percent, or 35% of multiplied by 140. And so 140 is our base, 35 is our percent. What is 35% of 140? Well, that is going to be our result, which is our amount. For this particular problem, our amount is unknown. Our base is 140 and our percent is 35. So how would we go about solving this question? What is 35% of 140? Well, it's actually pretty simple. We simply take our percent equation, which is percent times base equals amount, and we fill in our given information, namely percent 35%, which I'm going to write as the decimal, 0.35, so my percent, times the base, 140, equals the amount, which is unknown. So I'm going to put X there because I don't know what that is. I have to take 0.35 times 140. I can't do that in my head, so I'm going to pull out my calculator. I'm going to take 0.35, multiply it times 140, and it tells me that that answer is 49. And so to answer the question, what is 35% of 140? The answer is simply 49. Or I could state that 49 is 35% of 140. Let's take a look at another use of the percent equation. Suppose I have the question, 1,080 is 60% of what number? Again, I'm going to use the percent equation to solve this simple question. But first I'm going to identify the percent, the base, and the amount. Remember, keep in mind we always take a percent of a base, and so we're looking for the word of, and that's going to be our multiplication. So in our question, 1,080 is 60% of what number? I identify my of, that's my multiplication. I'm taking 60% of my base. So for this particular problem, 60% becomes my percent. My base is unknown, right? Because you always take the percent of the base. So my base is unknown. And the amount is the result. And so for my problem, 1,080 becomes my amount in my percent equation. So let's go about answering this question. I have that the percent times the base equals the amount. For my particular question, my percent is 60%, and I'm going to write it as 0.60. My base, well, that's unknown. That's what I'm looking for. And my amount is 1,080. So if I'm trying to figure out 60% of what number is 1,080, I simply have to take this algebraic equation and I'm going to divide both sides by 0.60 so that I get x by itself on the left side. Again, I don't know what that is, so I'm going to pull out my calculator. 1,080 divided by 0.6 gives me 1,800. In other words, 60% of 1,800 gives me 1,080. Let's take a look at one more application of the percent equation. 21 is what percent of 84? 21 is what percent of 84? Again, I want to identify, first off, my percent, my base, and my amount. Well, it's kind of obvious right here what percent, so my percent is missing, right? So my percent is actually what I'm looking for. That's what's going to be missing. Of, that's my multiplication. I take a percent of my base. So that makes 84 my base. And that is equivalent to 21, so 21 becomes my amount. Let me set up my percent equation. Percent times base equals amount. This time I'm looking for my percent, so my percent gets X, times my base is 84, equals the amount, which is 21. Let me rewrite that to make it a little more friendly algebraically. In other words, X times 84 is just 84X. And so now I'm going to solve for X. And to solve for X, we're going to divide both sides of our equation by 84. So that I have that X is actually 21 divided by 84. But what am I looking for? I'm actually looking for a percent. So let me plug that into my calculator. 21 divided by 84 is 0.25. That's a decimal number. To write it as a percent, what do we have to do? We have to move our decimal 2 places to the right. So really, to answer the question, 21 is what percent of 84? I can give the answer that 21 is actually 25% of 84. Or in other words, right, a fourth of 84 if you think of it that way.